like I should have played this guy more, given this guy more opportunities. Hack certainly is one of those guys. It was just very difficult to do that when you have basically two catchers on your team, and if you're DHing Kyle Wilkie and you're catching Adam Hackenberg, if something happens to Adam Hackenberg in the game, now you're bringing your DH in to catch. So now your pitcher's in the DH spot. So it created, because of our catching depth, it created a little bit of an issue for us trying to get both of those guys in the lineup at the same time. We did it a couple of times, but it was tough to do. If we were going to catch Hackenberg, basically we needed to not play Wilkie in case something happened. That's tough to do when one of your best hitters is Kyle Wilkie. So it did create a little bit of an issue for us. Hopefully this year we'll be in a little bit different situation from a depth standpoint, where we can get Hackenberg and French potentially in the lineup at the same time. But yeah, I would have liked to have been able to play Hack a little bit more. But that being said, he's going to play all summer in the Cape Cod League, and we anticipate him getting better and better, and should vie for a lot of opportunities to be on the field this upcoming year behind the plate.
Now that you had some time to reflect on the season, would you consider it a success?
That's a good question. I think we did a lot of things really well, but there's certainly a lot of things that did not go well for us and that we need to get better at. Is it a success? I certainly would say we're not satisfied with how the season went. In my mind, the answer would be no. That would be my answer. I'm not satisfied. I'm certainly disappointed and frustrated with how our season went. There's a lot of things that we need to improve upon. You're going to say that after every year, though. Bear in mind, if you don't go to the College World Series, there's things you need to improve upon. But there's always positives. We made it to the postseason again. I think we're one of 13 teams that's made it to the postseason 4 consecutive years, and one of five to make it in the last 11. So there's some good things about getting into the postseason. We all know that. But to get beat in the regional round again, a 35-win team, based on where we were at the halfway point, how the second half of our season went, certainly not up to my standards as a head coach, and our players either. And that's not to say anything negative about our players. I think our players understand the expectations of the program and where we want to get to. So we didn't reach that. So I think we're all disappointed with how the season ended. The second half of the season, we were unable to right the ship for a long period of time. We showed spurts in the second half of the year, but we were unable to get back on a hot streak again in the second half of the year. So that falls on me as a coach. I've got to find a way, and one of the things just in my notes that we got to improve upon going into next year, got to find a way for a lot of our players and our team to get better in the second half of the season. For whatever reason, the second half of the year, I didn't think we were as good offensively. I didn't think we were as good on the mound as we should have been. And that's certainly on us as coaches. We've got to find a way to continue to develop our guys throughout the season and get better as the season goes on. The second half of the year, we weren't a real good team on a lot of days, and we need to find a way to get better. But it didn't end the way that I wanted it to. It's certainly disappointing, and we must improve.
Do you feel like the leadership was there?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think that from a leadership standpoint, guys like Logan and Grayson Bird and Kyle Wilkie and Jordan Green, those were kind of the four that had played a lot of baseball for us. Those guys were pretty consistent on the field, in practice, in the locker room. Pitching-wise, guys like, Brooks and Jacob and Carson Spires certainly provided the right type of leadership, that veteran leadership that you need. One thing we've got to find a way going into next year, we've got to find more emotional, outspoken leadership within our team. And that's not a negative on the guys that we have, but we were more of a business-like approach type group of guys. Would like to see going into the fall, who can step up, because we did lose some veterans. Who can step up more on the position player side for me is, who's going to be that emotional, energetic leader in the clubhouse and on the field. We need that. We need more fire outwardly. I felt like this group worked about as hard as they could have worked. This was a group that worked very, very hard. This was a team that played hard. This was a team that competed as hard as they could. But at the end of the day, that's the thing that I saw is do we have some guys in there who can be emotional and energetic guys, in the clubhouse, in the dugout during the game, just because we didn't have necessarily those types of personalities. So we're going to look for that. We've got some leadership that we got to replace. Nobody carried themselves and worked harder than a Logan Davidson and a Kyle Wilkie and a Carson Spires and those guys. So there's going to be some youth on that infield. We need some of those guys that are coming back and coming in to be, in my opinion, just a little more fiery and energetic and emotional in a good way. I think we definitely had the right leadership in place, and it's going to be tough to replace some of those guys. But just looking at it as a head coach, I'd like to see us be a little more fiery than we were, if that's the term, with this upcoming year. I think we just need a little more energy in the dugout during the games and in practice.
Could Bryce or Sam be those guys?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, T.O. is a tough kid. Bryce Teodosio has played a lot of baseball for us. He's a tough kid. He can be that voice that we need. Sam Hall certainly can do that as well. And there's certainly some other guys. A healthy Kier Meredith is a competitor, as a kid that played football in high school too. So he can certainly be one of those guys. Michael Green, was a pretty tough kid. So there's certainly some candidates in there, but those guys got to step up too. I mean, those guys have to assume that and want to assume that leadership role. It's not something as a coach that you can encourage it. You can meet with them and talk about it, but they've got to assume that role and take on that role of leadership if that's what they want to do.
Coach Weatherly, I believe, led your team in strikeouts per inning, but he also led the team in walks per inning. If he's going to compete for one of those weekend starting spots, is that really the only thing that he really needs to improve upon?
Well, Weatherly, when we met at the end of the year, Sam Weatherly is an emotional, tough kid. I think you're going to see going into next year, he's going to be one of the leaders on that pitching staff. He is the kind of guy that you want in your clubhouse. And the thing that I like about Sam Weatherly is he is 100% accountable as to what he needs to do to put himself at the next level. He understands that his walk numbers are probably too high. He's got to throw more strikes if he wants to start. He wants an opportunity to start next year. And so I'm excited to see what he's going to do in the Cape. Can he get to the point where he can get to that 70, 80 pitch count mark? And that's a big threshold. I think sometimes that a guy like him's got to break is, can they stay out there for 5 innings? Can he pitch to contact early in the count and get fly ball and ground ball outs? Because when you're constantly in 5, 6, 7 pitch at bats, it's very difficult to get through 5 innings. So that's the thing that he's got to work on. And I feel pretty good about Weatherly going into next fall. But it's certainly an area, again, he's got to limit his walks and be able to pitch to contact a little bit more. But he does have the ability to strike hitters out once he gets ahead of them and gets them in 2-strike counts.
We all know the numbers about super regionals and trade. Is there any pressure? Have you talked to Dan about what expectations are for next year?
We've had conversations, yes. I've talked to Dan, and again, we haven't necessarily talked about next year expectations, things of that nature. We always, when we have conversations, we talk about the team, and we all know the expectations. I think that's kind of a given that the expectations are for us to be playing for championships, to win regionals, to host regionals, win regionals, and advance past the regional round. I think everybody in the program understands the expectations. I think we also understand some of the things that we've done here that have been very positive, but we're always working towards moving farther in the postseason than we have. So yes, Dan and I have had great conversations, and I think both of us are certainly on the same page as far as areas that we need to continue to improve upon and work towards to get our team back to Omaha. That's the ultimate goal.
What are some of the things he said to you he would like to see improvement on?
Well, I mean, again, those are between Dan and I. I think is our conversations are between he and I. but they've been very positive and have been very good on my end, and obviously I've shared with him how I feel about our team and what we need to do moving forward, and I think he agrees. And again, we've had very positive conversations.
When you have this much depth in your pitching, is it going to change the way you manage the game and how you handle the pitching staffs? And how do you keep everybody happy?
You can't keep everybody happy. I don't think you would have a competitive team if you keep everybody happy. I mean, that's the nature of running a program. Is guys have to earn the opportunities to get on the mound. They have to earn the opportunities to get on the field. And if guys are not on the field or not on the mound, I don't expect them to be happy. I think they have to understand it. They have to understand why. We encourage our guys to come and talk to us in the office. If you have any sort of issue or question as far as what your role is on this team, come and talk to us as a coach. And I find that the guys that do that, number one, they're competitive and they want to get better. So I like it. When a player wants to come and talk to me about his role on the team and maybe why he's not getting as many innings or as at-bats as he thinks he should, I explain to him my thoughts and what I see and areas that he needs to improve upon. And oftentimes that young man walks out of your office, feels much better about where he's at and what he's got to do to get on the mound or get on the field. The areas that I always get concerned about is when they don't ask. So for me, you can't keep everybody happy. And if they are happy with limited playing time or their role, to me, that's not necessarily a good thing. I want guys to want to know what they've got to do to get on the field. That means they want to play for you and help you win. So you can't keep everybody